morning, everyone. Hi there. Welcome to our Online in the United States, Online in the USA webinar today. We're really pleased that you could join us, especially as there's a snowstorm coming any minute. Some of you have already said that you're gonna have to check in for a recording afterwards. That's fine, totally understand. We will be sending everyone a recording. Erin's also a bit worried about her internet, but we'll push on. It'll be fine. So we're delighted to be able to talk about the online environment for the USA. And just while the last of you log on, do a quick introduction of who we are. So my name is Susanna. I'm delighted to be here today. This is our 10th webinar with the Atlantic Canada companies about the online world. So we've got a little bit of a library here for you. We thought one last one before you're all allowed to go off to Christmas shopping. So I'm Chief Content Officer at IBT Online. Delighted to be here. I'm joined by my colleague Samantha Sopici, Senior Online Business Development Manager for IBT Online. And Samantha is a fount of knowledge on anything online and for strategy and for marketing and for all those things. So she's here to help. And then we're really pleased that Erin can join us. Hopefully her internet holds out. Erin is with the Nova Scotia Association of CBDCs, and she's really the program manager for these online global programs for the Atlantic provinces. So she is the person to get in touch with for everything about the programs, about applications, about fundings, about grants, about how and when to do any questions at all. She's your contact person. And I can testify that huge amounts of patience and good humor from Erin. So do reach out anytime for information on the online global programs for the Atlantic Canada provinces. Also, who we are as a company. Our company is called IBT Online, and we specialize in online tools for companies that look to go to international markets. So we build websites, global websites, international websites. We do online marketing internationally. Those are the two pillars of our company, and we're really proud to have been chosen by the Atlantic provinces to deliver these online global programs for you for the Canadian companies, and that's so that you can have websites anywhere in the world, anywhere that you choose. So without ado, let's talk today about the United States. So this is basically what we're going to be talking about today. So here's the agenda. And I thought we'd start out with just a brief word from myself and from Erin about the online global program, and then dive straight into the online world in the United States, what that means, how that is, and then talk about USA websites. Not just the ones that you see now, but also the trends we see going forward. And then a little word about engaging with US prospects, how to help your distributors do that as well. And then circle back with Erin about the Canada Online Global Program, some examples, case studies and things, and leave you some time at the close for some questions. Do pop your questions in. We're delighted with any questions or comments you might have. So just drop them in the chat box and we'll pick them up as we go. I'm sorry for the squeaky noise. I have a dog and I'm working from home. And she sees her dog friends outside. So I'm sorry if there's like a whiny noise in the background. There's going to be one or two polls during the webinar. We hope you'll respond. And also we will be sending you all a recording of this. So without further ado, let's talk first a bit about the, oh, yes, Samantha's dog.
Sorry.
Gonna set my dog off. Right, Atlantic Canada, what we've called a helping hand. So there are, the Atlantic Canada online global programs have been developed for the 4 provinces equally. I should say as well, they're in English or in French. If you're happier in French, just let me know. This webinar is in English, but drop your questions in French if you want. It's fine with me. So for the 4 provinces, we have also allocated some space on our website. We have an entire page now, dedicated resources for you, where you can find a lot about the information about the websites, about website localization and what that means. You can get links to all the previous webinars that you would want to listen to if that has an interest for you, about online marketing, about e-commerce, about localized websites, about a lot of different areas in the world. And also you can download the applications for the programs on our website as well. So as I said, there's all these, if you go through it, at the bottom of the page, there's all these recordings that you can click on and download about online in Latin America, or business development websites and localization websites and so on. So with that, I'm going to also ask Erin to just, I guess, introduce herself for those who don't already know. Erin?
Thanks, Susanna. Good morning, everyone. We've made it to the end. Thanks to everyone who've registered and attended our workshops over the last month and a half. I took a quick look at registration lists and I thought if I had a prize, it would go to Louise. So Louise has been at all, I think about one of our webinars, like in attendance on with us the whole time. So really appreciate everyone, all your support that you've given to our webinar series. Hope they've been informative for you. For those of you that are new, this is the end of our series. You can go back and see all of the recordings. But I'm Erin Smith. I'm the Executive Director for the Nova Scotia Association CBDCs. We're the delivery agent for this project. And I wanted to note that these webinars are made possible through the Atlantic Trade and Investment Growth Agreement. So this is a partnership of ACOA and the 4 Atlantic provincial governments. And the folks with our provincial and federal governments, they're really keen on helping you succeed in export. So I would encourage you to reach out to them, find out what other programs and services might be available. And as always, I'm happy to make those connections if you're not sure who that is that you should be talking to. I'll also note that today is the deadline for the second component of the online global program. That's the website localization piece. So if you're interested in applying for the $15,000, I'd encourage you to get that application in by the end of the day today. And our intention is to divide the spots up equitably among the 4 Atlantic provinces. So I will note we are still looking for some more applications from New Brunswick and PEI. We've got some spots definitely available for those provinces for sure. And I'll be here for the whole webinar and can answer any questions that you might have when we get to the end.
Thanks so much, Erin. And as she said, it's the last day to apply for the grants to help you get international localized websites. So reach out. And for those of you who are looking for the application form, you can find them on our website, or also on the one from Erin and the Atlantic Provinces one. And I think we'll drop them into the chat box as well, because I realize these are not downloadables. So with that, we're going to talk about online in the USA from coast to coast. And I can get Samantha a little help from her dog to run us through this. Samantha?
Perfect. Thank you, Susanna. Yes, and speaking of dogs, so I think the first thing that it's important to go over when thinking about online in the US is the importance of search engines, because search engines recognize where you are. Even if you have a .com website for Canada, it takes into account many other factors when ranking your website for the US or for Canada. So here's a really great practical example of how a country-specific Google produces results that are relevant to each specific user. So we asked one of our Canadian colleagues who's in Toronto, and myself and Mammy, we both have dogs who love to play in the background, like Susanna also. So we both searched for squeakless dog toys. Google provided results that were relevant to each user. So I got things like Chewy.com, Amazon.com, and Yahoo with a really relevant piece of content. However, our Canadian colleague got things I've never heard of, but you guys are probably very familiar with, things like petmax.ca, homesalive.ca, and even PetSmart, which I am familiar with, but they had a .ca website. So the same search on different Google search engines provided us with different results. But you have to keep in mind that localization is not just keywords and domain names, but Google takes into account these 10 factors among others. So things like local design, mobile friendliness, cultural relevance, and even hosting. And regulatory requirements are becoming increasingly important in its ranking algorithm. And here is an example of how a properly localized website can work. So here we have a B2B website that's dedicated to the US market. And you can see that the grand majority of sessions, almost 400 sessions, were from their main target market, so from the United States. And it was barely relevant. So Google saw that it was barely relevant for other English-speaking markets like the UK, India, New Zealand, and even Canada came in 8th place with only 3 sessions out of the almost 500 sessions to this specific website. So Google took into account all of the factors that were on the previous slide and ranked it and decided that it was specifically for the US market. And you can actually get really specific with it to specific states. So you can see that it was really relevant for Virginia and England and a little less relevant for people in Texas, for example. So Google its main objective is to put relevant information, the most relevant information in front of its users. And that's what it did here for this website. So as a Canadian company, how many English language websites do you really need? So English is the most widely spoken language in the world, especially for business. So it might make sense to just have one English website for all English speakers. But in the online world, details really matter. And different English dialects use different words and different keywords getting the keywords right is especially important for your website to be found and for people to actually understand you and be easier to do business with through your online presence. So some 63 countries claim English as their national language, but having one English language website will not give you instant access to the 1.5 billion English speakers, as we saw in that previous example. So the US is the largest English-speaking nation with 225 million native speakers and 25.6 million second language speakers. The US is an obvious market to start if you're planning on going global in English. Besides the United States, so-called American English is widely used in Canada, and we'll see some similarities and differences between Canada English, British English, and American English in a second. But you have to note, however, that even in markets dominated by American English, keywords vary. And without the right local keywords, your website is not optimized for the local search engine. So in this little chart, you'll be able to see some differences and similarities between American English, Canadian English, and British English. I found researching this to be really interesting because I didn't realize how a Canadian English kind of morphs some things of American English, some things of British English. It was super interesting. And depending on where the words came from, so if they were from like French origin, then you usually keep the French origin, and then if they were Greek, you keep the Greek. So it was really interesting to learn a little bit more about this. But these are some fun little examples of how you really need to understand if you're going into the US, you need to understand how the US spells their words and everything, because that affects how they're searching and your keyword research. So things like practice, license, sanitize, color, theater, those endings are very specific to American English, just as they're specific to Canada and British English. And also other things with keyword research, like the vocabulary. In the US, we use things like truck, elevator, and we say the last letter of the alphabet is Z. However, in Canada, you do say truck and elevator, but you say Z. And there's obviously going to be differences, not only American versus Canadian, but also American throughout the region. If you go to Michigan, for example, a lollipop is a sucker. If you go to Florida, a lollipop is a lollipop. That's where I live, so that's what I say. And just little differences like that vary across the US. So your keyword research is really important. Here's an example of actually a UK company that localized their website for the US market. They realized that their main market, or one of their main markets, was the US, and they really wanted to dedicate the resources and the time to attract people from the US market to their website. So they decided to get a dedicated website. And you can see here, if you note the specific imagery, they are US signs, like to downtown Indianapolis, and the trucks are US trucks. So that's just a really simple, easy fix for the US, for people in the US to realize that this website is for the US market. And you can actually see in we have another little screenshot here. Oh, or not. There we go. This is another screenshot of their us.com website and how they were, if you take a look at the spelling, the imagery, it is very much for the US, and it's on a .com. So a good example of another English-speaking country that decided to create another English-speaking website for the very important US market. So taking all of this into account, the USA is obviously a very large market, a huge player in the online space, in the tech space, and the numbers absolutely back it up. So if you take a look at these numbers, there is a more mobile connections than people, with 107% penetration rate for mobile phones. 87% of the population are on the internet, and 70% of the population are active social media users, meaning they are pulling up a social media site at least once a month, or even more frequently. So you'll have 70% of the US population at your fingertips. But what's really neat to keep in mind is that the average time spent, which of the 6 hours and 42 minutes that people spend online on average, 2 of those hours is on social media. So if you are looking to go into the US market, you have to understand that the majority of people are online, they're on social media, and they're spending a significant amount of time on social media. So make sure to dedicate some time, some resources, some thought to your social media accounts. And another thing that's pretty interesting that wasn't on that slide is that the average speed of mobile connections has increased by 28%. So mobile phones, so the ability to always be connected 24/7, their efficiency, their connectivity has increased, and it's only going to increase further with the widespread adoption of 4G and 5G. So also another thing to keep in mind, make sure to keep your websites mobile friendly. And then just looking at the online content activities, it's really interesting here because some of these categories weren't even really a thing like 5 years ago. So 31% of people who are online watch vlogs, and 33% listen to podcasts. 2 things that didn't really exist prior to about 5 to 7 years ago. And 87% watch online videos, so whether that's streaming or through YouTube, things like that. A lot of people are spending a lot of time consuming information through videos and through audio. So another thing to keep in mind when taking a look at your strategy for US. One thing to keep in mind for the US market is, although obviously English is the widely spoken language in the US, it is not homogeneous throughout. So and it's changing every single year. There are more and more people speaking a second language at home, or that they speak mostly another language at home and then English in public. So if you take a look at these 2 charts, I find this to be super interesting. As an Argentine immigrant, my family came to the United States. We speak Spanish at home. I thought this was really, really interesting in that the percent of population in 2018 that speaks another language at home, you can kind of see the patterns of where immigrants like to at least initially go. So places on the coast like California, Texas, New Mexico is north of Texas, but you know it's right there. Or actually, it's next to Texas. New York, Florida, places that Hawaii, where they have a high indigenous population. Just really interesting patterns that of the amount of people that speak another language at home. And if you take a look at this other chart, the percent increase of those speaking a foreign language at home from 1980 to 2018. So a span of 30, almost 40 years, the percentage of increase of people who are speaking in another language is also really interesting. And you can see where people are immigrating from these coastal towns, maybe to other places, like Georgia, North Carolina, places that you wouldn't really consider to be an immigration hub like Florida or New York or California. So really interesting, and to also keep that in mind when localizing your website and doing business in the US. And if we take a look at the breakdown of these specific languages, there was an increase of speakers from 2010 to 2018 of 4.5 million Spanish speakers in the US. And then the other languages that had the largest increases are Chinese, Arabic, Hindi, Tagalog, and Vietnamese. And these languages are also really important in that there are more than 1 million people that speak these languages at home, with 41.5 million Spanish speakers in the US, 3.5 million Chinese speakers, and 1.3 million Arabic speakers. And actually, there's more Tagalog speakers than Arabic speakers, which I thought that was pretty interesting. But Arabic is increasing at a stronger rate than Tagalog in the US. So with all of this in mind, and this, by the way, this study came from the Census Bureau for 2018. The Center for Immigration Studies found that 67.3 million residents in the US now speak a language other than English, so almost 22%, which, just to kind of put that into perspective, is equal to the population of France. And the number has tripled since 1980 and more than doubled since 1990. So definitely a trend to keep in mind when doing business in the US. And I think with that, I'll hand it back to Susanna.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really interesting. So a huge market, obviously, very plugged in, very much online, very involved in their social media, but also very diverse. We can see. I wanted to touch very briefly on online compliance. The US is not known for its online compliance. Canada is probably further along that trend line, and Europe certainly more so too. But it is fast catching up. And I've recently heard sort of online compliance or online data anyway being compared to sort of gold dust. So my guess is that the US is going to round up on this and try and regulate it pretty soon. All the noise coming from the US is that certainly the next administration will be looking at putting further or some kind of regulation, perhaps at the federal level. At the moment, the regulation tends to be very much on the at the state by state level, led by California. The chart here is just the share price of Facebook, and it's it just shows you. I just really wanted to highlight sort of if data is an asset, then who is benefiting from that asset at the moment completely. And I think the increasing realization across the world is that data is an asset that can be monetized. Hence companies like Facebook. But that some of that monetization, some of that richness has to be shared in some kind of responsible way. Nobody's quite sure how to share that properly, but it's sort of moving that way. And this is just sort of Amazon, and this is a similar thought behind it about data, and then obviously the recent spike because of the pandemic. But again, a company whose business model is founded on data. Online compliance, as I said, really started with California, and what the California Ccpa, which gives you the basis of some of the essentials for that. It's not quite a GDPR what you have in Europe, but it's not that far away either. So the Ccpa Essentials, it applies to all businesses anywhere that serve Californians. So if you are thinking of doing a US website, and you will probably think about or touch into California, then make sure that you are Ccpa Essential, Ccpa compliant. The core of it is, that the consumer has the right to know what data you're harvesting from them. They can delete it if they want. They can opt in rather than an automatic they can opt out rather than automatic opt in, and they have the ability to sue you if not. There's another regulation which is coming on for signatures, which is coming in again, spearheaded by California as of early 2021. What I can say is we find it easier rather than dealing with all these different legislations. Just go for the gold. Just go for like a GDPR in all your websites. That way, at least you'll be covered. GDPR has a higher level of data privacy obligations and structures for your website than CCPA. So if you're GDPR compliant, you'll be CCPA compliant. And that's, I think, a good sort of safety net for all your international websites. And just know that any website we produce is always GDPR compliant when relevant to that market. There's just one little thing I just wanted to show you, which I kind of like blows me away. The California legislative information, where you can get all this CCPA information, is not compliant. It is not a secure website. How wild is that? It's the government website, which is not secure, does not have encryption. So there you go. Make sure your websites are secure, and at the very basic level of it, make sure that when you have an HTTP, it's followed by an S, which stands for security. Right, so that's compliance as well. Now let's look at best practice USA websites and some of what we mean. Samantha's already talked about a lot of the components, the right localization so that Google in the US, and Google is the market leader in terms of search engine, about 67% market share in the US, that Google can find you easily as well. But there's more, so all those 10 criteria that Samantha talked about, hosting in the right place, having the right domain names, mobile enabled, the right compliance, all of that goes without saying. But there's something else I think which is worth highlighting for this one in particular, because the USA, it's an English, it's your neighbor, so you know that market well. So, I thought it'd be interesting to look at some of the user experience. And if you're in the web world, you say user experience, you shorten that to UX. UX stands for user experience, and LUX stands for local user experience or localized user experience. And I wanted to talk you through some of the things that a localized user experience would find at the best practice in the United States today. And there's some non-negotiables about that, that the websites are easy to find. So Google knows exactly what it is you're doing on that website. Yes, it's targeting the US market. Yes, it's encrypted, and all that. Also that the website is easy to browse and easy to navigate through and to find information. Also that it progresses naturally from one area to another with clear calls to action, clear direction of travel. And that's very much something that I want all of your websites to be. Websites should also say, where do you want your search or your prospective buyer to go? If he's on that page, where should he go from that page? What do you want him to do? What's the ideal journey of your prospective buyer on your website? So therefore, some of the things that I put on the right-hand side of this slide shows you, for example, what a good user journey might be or for that user experience. So obviously it's well built. Obviously it's localized. It's clearly navigatable and easy. A lot of backlinks and downloadables, but strategically placed within the website. Calls to action. Calls to action should be easy, clear, and absolutely inviting. So just don't say more. For a US website, be friendly. Say, reach out to us. Hi, welcome. Want to learn more? Get in touch. And then obviously that design is engaging and pleasing. Not all, many US websites are not best practice. But what I'm trying to get you through here is some of the top trends in US websites and how you can get your US website to look that way so that it really, really works for you well. I wanted to share an example of a US website. On the left-hand side of your screen was sorry, it's a bit fuzzy, but it's a screenshot of a website that had been around for about 10 years, was not secure, was not mobile enabled. The pictures were really old. It didn't tell a story. It's for a B2B company and just showed product and product and product. And so they asked us to redesign their US website for them. And we thought it was, one of the things we wanted to do increasingly is tell a story. Websites are about information. Why do you go to a website? You go to a website in order to find information. But there's a lot of information out there, a lot of competition. So you want information to click, you want information to engage, you want someone to actually like the information and engage with it. So it's also about people and about how, and people are concerned not just with the product anymore, they're concerned with you as a company. The most visited page, apart from your home page, is your About Us page for your website. And the About Us page should not just be a long list of your, whatever, a long list of text. Make it short, snappy, but real. And I just wanted to share some images with you. I mean, this is now the homepage of this company. They're very embedded in their local community. And we wanted to really embed that and show, and I would invite you to go to their website, ASI Raise It. It's asiwheels.com. And show you, and they have some interesting things. So but it's not just only about sort of the fuzzy parts. The products are very well clearly seen. You have strong imagery, strong pictures on that, clear image of what the product is. Not a lot of text, but just the minimum amount of text for that. And if they want more detail, there's a backload, there's a downloadable, and so on. Note at the top, there's a clear call to action. Get a quote. Get a quote. But there's also on this B2B advanced manufacturing engineering company, a lot about the people. And they were very clear that they wanted the genuine people. These are not stock photos. Take out all the stock photos of your websites. People want genuine reality. They want authentic. And this increasingly is the case, really led by the US and US websites. And you'll see some of the best websites around right now are about people. And I think that the pandemic has increased this trend. It's less and less about the machine and more about the person. And as this is the last webinar we're doing all together for this particular series, and as it's Christmas, I thought the holiday season, I thought we'd dive into this a little bit, taking us a little bit out of the pure USA Online, a little bit more about user experience. But in fairness, user experience and localized user experience is key to getting the US market right. So it looks like a diversion, but bear with me for a second. So at the beginning of the pandemic, there's a pianist that I like very much, and I followed this pianist, and I was really amazed to see that he changed his complete tagline and his Instagram and his website from pianist, and he put pianist as third, and he said, "I am a human being, and I am a citizen." And then I'm a pianist. And now he's doing all of his piano recitals online for free for that. So I thought about this a lot when we're designing websites, when we're looking at websites and when we're going things to them, and doing a lot of the research that we do in terms of best practices and building our websites. And it's clear also when I look around a bit, there's a lot of changes going on in SEO, in search engine optimization. It's increasingly humanized, as it were. And there's a blog by a colleague of mine, Alex, about technical versus human SEO, and what's the best approach. Google has recently made some changes in those applications, and the algorithm is much less mechanistic. they've done away with the fact that, if it used to be that if you made a spelling mistake, you wouldn't get the right searches. Now they say, okay, people always spell these a bit differently. So it's less about the individual word and more intuitive, more flexible, which is good news. So it's much more human in that sense. Equally, when you're looking at content creation, a couple of clear views from that I've picked up from ourselves, but also from some key thinkers and thought leaders that I watch for about content creation. And the key resounding message from across the board was be genuine, write clear, concise, easy to understand. And this came out very much also for anything with regards B2B blogs. B2B used to be, well, how smart can I sound? And it's actually just a turnoff. And I was amused by the CTO of Oracle who just came out. Being an authority is no use unless you're approachable. You'd also say being an authority is no use unless you don't be understood. So make it easy to understand. And make sure that there's a storyline in there that gets engagement. We used to always look at a sales funnel and say, well, that's the sales funnel is going from the attraction phase to the engagement, delight phase, so that you would attract someone with the website, you would then convert them through calls of action and things like that, and then sales alert and so on. So you'd move down that sales funnel of the buyer's journey. And your whole marketing and online strategy would be about sort of this attraction, engagement, delight for your websites and indeed for your online marketing. This is still the case, but these automated flows and workflows have really been disturbed in 2020, and we've seen things evolved in a very different way, and I don't think they're going to go back into a neat box in 2021 either. In a world that looks increasingly like a sort of digital first world, in a world where we use technology all the time, we use it to deal with pandemics, to continue working from home, to deal with climate change, whatever it is, all that, and we're sort of zooming in and out of each other's houses. The point is that we're also all becoming much more, trying to relate as human beings, less mechanistically. We're all reminded in that sense of common humanity. So how do we put that you and me, that back into your website, back into your online marketing, and back into your workflows and your sales funnels? So if you are using automated workflows and things, client flywheels, it's useful, but you can ignore that real life is often a little bit messier. And your website has to be well structured without a doubt, especially for the US, but it has to be above all, that's genuine, this authenticity. And I guess a final slide just on that is just this sort of this notion of this messy middle. Rather than having a neat sales funnel, you have much more sort of a messy middle, so that people convert, explore, attract, engage, so that the pathway that a buyer finds you, engages on your website, stays on your website, is no longer so clear. They go to your website, they go off, they come back, they go off, they come back, they compare, and so on. And you have to be, your website now has to be ready for all of that journey that it can do. And websites can do that, and online marketing can do that. So it's so I guess the key for a modern buyer's journey is to make sure that it's one of engaging experiences, and that content is always engaging for that. So that's the key part that I wanted to underline for that USA websites. Right. Let's talk very quickly about online marketing. And what I've called reaching and engaging your southern neighbors. But before I do that, I'm going to launch a quick poll. That way, I wondered whether you're already doing business in the United States. Are you there? I've said in-market partner. That could be a subsidiary as well, or it can be a distributor, or it could be a partnership, whatever it is. Are you online only? I mean, that could be a good choice for some of you. Some of you could be online and an in-market partner. Let us know. We're really. I'm going to give you a little bit of feedback on that. There's a few of you who are thinking about it, but I'd say the majority of you are with an in-market partner only. Next in line would probably come online and with an in-market partner, and for that I'm very interested to see that strong showing there. The majority, as I said, is with an in-market partner only, and that's great. That's good. Then just know that a US website is probably the single best tool you can give a local distributor if you've got one like that. And some of you are online and in-market partner, which is great as well. Thank you very much indeed. This little tiny handful, which is online only. Woo. Okay, I'm going to close that poll, and we're going to talk about social media. We have an entire webinar dedicated to social media. So if you have an interest there, please download that one. Social media overview in the United States. Samantha showed you some of those big numbers. We said that some 87% of the population of the United States is online. 70%, 230 million of them, are engaged in social media. And the average time spent on social media is 2 hours a day. So that's, it's pretty staggering, really. As you see, the majority of them access it also via their phones, so make sure things are mobile enabled. There's been some big changes in the last 2 years, sort of a decrease in Facebook, a rise in Snapchat. TikTok, second biggest app to be uploaded in 2019, 2020. It's still far below the other ones, but it's right up there. It's growing fast. By 2023, so the next 2 years or so, it's thought that the number of active social media users in the United States will be about 260 million. So even further growth. And again, the pandemic has really accelerated these numbers. Just looking at the most used social media platforms, YouTube, 80% are on YouTube at some point or another. Facebook, and if you look, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp, they still have, they're all owned by Facebook, still have a pretty hefty chunk there. Facebook is flattening, is pretty well flat, whereas Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, Tumblr are all increasing. And as I said earlier, TikTok was the one that grew the most by far, as the US's second most downloadable app last year. And so looking at 2020 then so far, I'm sorry for the blurriness of this slide, but you can see in terms of the US adults using social media since the pandemic, it rose from, in US, for adults, it rose from something like 45% at the beginning of the epidemic to 51, and since May, I know it's grown even further. The number of minutes spent as well has increased. In other words, all of this is saying, social media really becoming part of absolute mainstream and mainstream business, as well as not just for the teenage kids. I wanted to show this as a sort of slide just on, I don't know if you can see, it's quite faint, but the rise of Zoom. And all those other apps on the bottom, which are like pretty well flat, for example, GoToWebinar, have just not progressed the same way because they are a business tool rather than Zoom, which is very much more can be used at home and it's really easy. But for companies, they're like, oh, Zoom's a bit worrying because it's not as secure. So they'll go onto a Teams or even a GoToWebinar. But Zoom has really cashed in on the fact that people are working from home. And again, the whole sort of where are people working from now? How are people engaging in the outside world? Well, that's very much up for discussion for 2021. But without a doubt, I think the point of what we wanted to say in this webinar is that the U.S. is online, and you can engage with them in the right way through social media and through your websites in a very meaningful, active way. Some of the top, the suspects in social media, we know them already. in terms of social media marketing. As I mentioned, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, but also LinkedIn is worth having a really good look at as well, particularly if you're on the B2B side. It's seen something like a 50% increase in amount of engagement rates during the pandemic. Just sort of a brief word on Facebook. It's obviously, a US giant. Many of you know, have already seen Facebook in some of the other webinars that we've already done, and will know already that Facebook's largest markets are outside the USA. Their largest, I think, is India, and then places like, Indonesia and so on. The USA is I think in second place. But Facebook USA is still the dominant one. It's a favorite of a lot of the social media marketeers because it's easy to use and you can segment your audience very well. But it is not really a growth platform. It's one where you can get good segmentation, so that's easy. It's a great one to start with. And very often what we find is, start with a Facebook, define your user persona and your buyer persona better, and then go into the groups that you can find on LinkedIn and Instagram and other platforms. We mentioned that YouTube is by far the biggest user in the United States. It is a fantastic platform for your websites. High engagement, easy to upload and change, easy to put in alt tags to make sure that it's well referenced by Google. And people don't want to read things anymore. They just want to hear it fast. I don't want to read a whole page of text. I want someone looking at me, explaining it and saying it to me. I just see it. I hear it faster. If I really want to go back and read through the details, I will, but then just give me a quick YouTube to understand it. And YouTubes, you should all be using videos on your websites. If you are using YouTube or other platforms, make sure that you're keeping your buyers, your users on your website. Make sure that they're contained there so that they're not going back onto, so don't let them go back onto YouTube. Put it as a separate window on your website. If they have to leave your website and go onto YouTube, you've lost them. Because then they'll be, on hours on YouTube and not on your website. So make sure that you keep it within that environment. That's why a lot of people also choose Vimeo for their websites rather than YouTube. A couple of examples of social media in the USA. What's interesting here is the fact that when you start using multiple channels, like you don't just have one Facebook, but you start to differentiate it and start to go, okay, in the United States, you start to say, okay, we have a Facebook, now let's add an Instagram. Let's add an Instagram TV with sort of video thing on it. Let's change them and intermix them. You get a really a good symbiosis of the social media. And the other thing that we're very struck by, it's especially true of the United States, but other markets too, there is a strong relationship, a symbiotic relationship between organic and paid. And organic, which comes without, so people coming onto your website without paying, it's helped by the paid. And this, again, if you want details on that, there's a whole webinar on that touches these points. But there's a really great symbiotic relationship between the two. So the direct, a visit to your website is enhanced by the social media which you might be paying. And that's sort of without a doubt. Just a couple more examples of some of the big, sort of, big broad brush stroke of social media in the United States. I really showed that example of the truck company. I just wanted to emphasize these are relatively easy social media campaign to run if you're running a sort of genuine, ongoing Instagram, for example. But you need to make sure that your imagery is always correct. Because on a lot of the social media platforms, it's the imagery that is the thing that captures the eye most. And as this is for the US, it's a Volvo truck, but it's a US Volvo truck on the far right. And this is a British company. They would not use that truck in the UK. It wouldn't get down the roads, for one thing. So this is actually, it dates from yesterday. I just, dates from yesterday afternoon. So something we put up yesterday afternoon, and it's sort of get out there a little bit on the Instagram side and doing some work for the company. But it's they're using the right imagery. And the second point I wanted to say is that the online media that you're using is informational. It is inbound. If you know the difference between inbound and outbound, it is informational, it's helpful. It is not pushy or spammy or whatever. It's, as I said before, in terms of user experience, it's engaging, it's genuine, it's authentic, and it gives information without being sort of too much in your face. That would be definitely a turn off at this point. So with that, I wanted just to highlight also, if you're a B2B company, sometimes B2B companies don't always get engaged with social media enough. There is real reason to engage on social media. I hope this chart just speaks for itself. And as I said before, I think we have a whole webinar dedicated to this. Looking at time, I'm going to go straight to Samantha to talk a little bit about the online global programs for Atlantic Canada and talk that through a little bit. Samantha?
Sorry about that. Yes. So together with Atlantic Canada, we have these wonderful online global programs to help you utilize your online presence to your advantage to help you succeed in your target markets, including places like the United States. So depending on what your goals are for your online presence, so it doesn't matter if you're B2B, B2C, or even B2G, we can tip and tailor your online presence accordingly to those goals. So just taking a quick look at these specific programs, and this is an overview, and then I'll go into the specifics in a second. But we have four options for you guys. If you're looking at having an informational website, then option A and option B could be for you. So option A is a 1 or 2 market expansion. So if you want to really dive deep into one market, then that can be, I think it's 24 pages and 4,000 words based off of your Canadian website. If you want to do a 2 market expansion, then it's 12 pages, 2,000 words, also based off of your Canadian website. It's a template program with a set price. Option B is a customized market expansion. So if you would like, maybe you want a larger scope of work, or maybe you want a complete redesign, or maybe you want us to integrate it with a specific CRM or a new CMS, then all of that would be under option B, and the scope of work and the budget is determined by your scope of work. Then option E is the last option. So if you would like a dedicated e-commerce platform for your specific target market, then option E would be for you. So we would create a customized online e-commerce platform with the appropriate payment gateways, the currencies, just everything that you think of when it comes to an e-commerce platform to make it a really easy user experience for the customer. So taking a little bit of a deeper dive into option A. So option A is a 1 or 2 market expansion with a limited scope. So either 12 pages and 2,000 words or 24 pages and 4,000 words each. So by the end of option A, you'll have 1 or 2 websites completely localized for your top 1 or 2 target markets. And so for this example, we have one in, I think it's Canadian English, and then another one in Spanish. And this was based off of their US site. So it will be based off of your Canadian site, but we will go through the whole localization process. And that includes things like proper domain names, local hosting, SEO keyword research, industry-specific translators, making sure that it's compliant, and so much more that we've reviewed over these past 10 webinars. So by having this website, you'll be easier to be found, easier to be understood, and be easier to do business with. And here's a great example of a company that did this with us. This company, their name is Palladio Beauty. They're pretty interesting because they both do B2B and B2C. But for their international online websites, we were focusing on their B2B market, so supporting their distributors, supporting their partners overseas. And one of their main concerns was to maintain brand consistency throughout their international markets. As a beauty cosmetics company, image and imagery is absolutely vital. It is so important. So they wanted to make sure to maintain their control over their brand consistency throughout the markets. And by having a localized website, we were able to do that for them. So as you can see throughout these examples, you can always tell, even though the images are different, that they are all Palladio Beauty. So pretty interesting case study and one of my personal favorites. Then going into option B. So option B is that customized scope of work. So in this example, we used ASI, which you saw in some previous slides, where we redesigned their US website from something that was really old. It wasn't user-friendly, it wasn't mobile responsive, and we redesigned it into something that was much more modern, something much more reflective of the company and the direction that it's going in these next coming years. So the budget for this program is completely dependent on the scope of work, but like option A, it is eligible for grants. So if that's something that you're interested in, let us know and we can start thinking about and determining the scope of work to let you know what the budget would be. And an example of a company who's done option B is Sparkla. And we did their online presence in China and the UK, and they plan to expand into other markets. And we created an online presence, and then we supported it with international online marketing, so social media marketing and search engine marketing campaigns to really drive traffic to these new websites. So for them, brand recognition was key, but also to generate leads for their current distributors, and to obviously grow their business in their international markets. And we were able to do that for them in their target markets. And we actually have a really great case study on our website as well, if you want to check that out. Then the last option is option E. So option E is a fully functioning e-commerce platform on your specific website for your main target market or markets. So for the e-commerce program, it's totally dependent on the scope of work. So whether you're a small, medium, or large, or extra large website, that's what the scope of work and the budget will be determined by. And you can use the grants from the grants are available for this option E in the Atlantic Canada Online Global Program. So please let us know if that would be the best option for you. And an example of a company that has done this is Vapor Pins. They wanted to go into Brazil, and they were actually already kind of developing a Brazilian e-commerce website. And turns out the people that they were using didn't really know how to make a Brazilian e-commerce website, so it wasn't functioning the way it was supposed to. It wasn't user-friendly. Brazilian people didn't like it, and so we came in and we actually created a fully localized Brazilian e-commerce platform for them, and it actually expanded into Spanish-speaking Latin America and Australia and New Zealand. And you can see here that it is fully localized in Brazilian real, for example, for the Brazilian market. And with that, the final slide. So we will copy and paste the link to apply for the applications both in English and French to apply for the online global programs. And if you have any questions, please contact Erin about anything having to do with this program. She's definitely the person to go to. And we're really looking forward to having conversations with you guys and hopefully helping you grow in your international markets.
Before I pass the last message over to Erin, I wanted to run a quick poll as well. I wanted us to ask the people who are left before your snowstorm hits if you've already applied for the Atlantic and Online Global Program. I think there were 20 spaces available at the start of the program, and so we're interested to know, how many of you are in the process of still applying, have already applied, are still thinking about it, and such. And that's interesting. There's a lot of you have already submitted your application form, which is terrific, and we can definitely agree with that. I see that. Very happy we're actually starting to work on that, which is terrific. Really pleased that we're beginning to work on some of these websites already. Samantha's just dropped the links to the applications in the chat box if you have an interest. And I'm going to hand over just to maybe to Erin for a quick roundup. Erin.
Thanks, Susanna. And thanks, everyone. Just a reminder to get those applications in by tonight. The total amount we've got available, 20 spots, $15,000 each, and your contribution would be $2,500 each. Just trying to reiterate, there's a marketing roadmap plan that comes as part of this, added on to that $16,000 costs that were shown in those slides, to bring that total value to $17,500. We'll come in for $15,000 of that. So if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email, give me a call, and I'm happy to chat through that with you. And a big thanks to IBT Online. Thanks, Susanna and Samantha, for all of your information you've been imparting over the last 10 webinars. We really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Erin. It's been a real pleasure, I have to say. So we've rather run out of time, and I think that many of you already were on previous ones. There's a couple of questions that have come in, and I'm really just going to focus on that. And just to say, yes, there are recordings on our website that you can get of all the last 10 webinars at all time. We are always here to answer questions, so you could also just drop us an email. That's easily done. If you want information about the program, head to Erin. She knows the details much better than we do. If you have a question about websites and online marketing and anything online, then drop us the question, and we're very happy to help with that. We wanted to say we are beginning this. We are starting the program now. We are rolling out some of the first websites. We've just signed some contracts with you all. There are 20 spots. I don't know how many are left. Erin will know, but I know that we are starting to build websites for Atlantic Canadian companies for their global markets, which is terrific. And so within we will be able to show you some case studies of that. Samantha, could you please drop Erin's email address into the chat box? I have just someone quickly asking for that.
Of course.
Thank you. Oh, there's this dog again. And oh, hold on, I wanted to wear my Christmas hat. It's nearly Christmas, and so we're excited to be starting the Canadian company websites. They generally take about 3 months to complete. So far, we have a lot of interest in Europe, a lot of interest in China, and a lot of interest in the United States. And some of you have asked for redesigns as well, which is really exciting. With that, I wanted to say a big, big thank you again to Erin, also to Samantha, and I believe you now have Erin Smith's email in the chat box as well, if you wanted to get through to her. Thank you all so much. Be safe, stay well, enjoy that snowstorm, keep warm, keep out of the snow, enjoy it from your living room. Erin, thank you again so much, and hope to see you all online at some point soon. Happy trading, happy business with everything. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye. Bye.